Good morning, children. In our today's class, we are going to see power sharing from the subject civics. With this chapter, we resume the tour of democracy that we started last year. We noted last year that in a democracy, all power does not rest with any one organ of the state. And intelligent sharing of power among legislature, executive and judiciary is very important to the design of a democracy. In this and the next two chapters, we carry this idea of power sharing forward. We start with two stories from Belgium and Sri Lanka. Both these stories are about how democracies handle demands for power sharing. The stories yield some general conclusions about the need for power sharing in democracy. This allows us to discuss various forms of power sharing that will be taken up in the following two chapters. Okay, children, we now see the meaning of power sharing. Power sharing is a technique to share the power at different levels. It is an idea inculcated in democracy so that the power is not concentrated at one hand only and that different forms can keep a check on each other. India is an example of holding together federations where the power is shared between central government and different constituent states. So here power sharing means sharing of power at different levels. So if you take our country India, it's a democratic country where the power is being shared between the central government and the different states. Power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. A democratic rule involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and who have to live with its effects. All communities, social groups get their say in the governance. Power sharing in India. People of India elect their representative through direct franchise. After that, people's representatives elect the government to make or amend rules and regulations and to carry out day-to-day functioning of governance. So here, people of India elect their representative through direct franchise. Franchise means the right to vote in public elections. So, people of India, those who are above 18 years old have the right to vote. So they select their own representatives. And after that, people's representatives elect the government in order to make rules and regulations and to carry out the functioning of governance. Power sharing in India. In a democracy, through institutions of self-governance, people rule themselves. In a good democratic government, everyone has a voice in the shaping of public policies. In a democracy, political power should be distributed among as many citizens as possible. Let's now see the need of power sharing. Power sharing helps in reducing the conflict between various social groups. Hence, power sharing is necessary for maintaining social harmony and peace. Power sharing helps in avoiding the tyranny of majority. The tyranny of majority not only destroys the minority social groups but also the majority social group. Okay, children, let's now see the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka. First, we'll learn about Belgium. Belgium. Belgium is a small country in Europe, smaller in area than the state of Haryana. It has borders with Netherlands, France, and Germany. It has a population of a little over 1 crore, about half the population of Haryana. The ethnic composition of this small country is very complex. Of the country's total population, 59% lives in the Flemish region and speaks Dutch language. Another 40% people live in the Wallonia region and speak French. Okay, children, if you take the country Belgium, which is situated in Europe, and if you see the size of this country, it is smaller in area than the state of Haryana. So, Haryana is a state in India, so Belgium is smaller than the size of Haryana. And Belgium has borders with Netherlands, France, and Germany. So, if you take the population, it has a population of little over 1 crore, about half the population of Haryana. And next we talk about the ethnic composition of this small country, and it's very complex because they have divisions. Like of the country's total population, 59% lives in the Flemish region and they speak Dutch language, and another 40% people they live in Wallonia region and they speak French. And remaining 1% of the Belgians speak German. In the capital city Brussels, 80% people speak French while 20% are Dutch speaking. The minority French speaking community was relatively rich and powerful. This was resented by the Dutch speaking community, who got the benefit of economic development and education much later. Okay, children, we have already seen the divisions, so remaining 1% of the Belgians speak German. And if you take the capital city, which is Brussels, Brussels is the capital of Belgium. If you take the capital city Brussels, 80% people speak French while 20% are Dutch speaking. So here they have divisions like 80% of the people speak French and 20% of the people speak Dutch. So here the minority French speaking community was so rich and powerful, and only later the Dutch speaking community they got the benefit of economic development and education. This led to tensions between the Dutch speaking and French speaking communities during the 1950s and 1960s. The tension between the two communities was more acute in Brussels. Brussels presented a special problem. The Dutch speaking people constituted a majority in the country but a minority in the capital. Okay, children, so we have seen the divisions, and this had led to the tensions between the Dutch speaking and the French speaking communities during 1950s and 1960s. Okay, this tension was more acute in Brussels because in Brussels they presented a special problem, that is the Dutch speaking people constituted a majority in the country, whereas it was a minority in the capital. Okay, children, here we have got the ethnic composition. If you take the country Belgium, 59% speak Dutch language and 40% are the French speakers, and remaining 1% belongs to the German speakers. And whereas if you take the Brussels, which is the capital of Belgium, 20% of the people speak Dutch language and remaining 80% speak French. Okay, now we shall see the meaning of ethnic. Ethnic means a social division based on shared culture. People belonging to the same ethnic group believe in their common descent because of similarities of physical type or of culture or both. They need not always have the same religion or nationality. Okay, children, here we have got a map, communities and regions of Belgium. So here if you take Brussels, which is the capital of Belgium, so there we have Dutch speaking people who were minority. And in Wallonia, 40% of the people were speaking French and they were very rich and powerful. And this side we have Flemish, 59% of the people are speaking Dutch language, and they benefit the education and economic development. And remaining, we have 1% of the people who are speaking German. Okay, children, let us compare this to the situation in another country, that is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an island nation just a few kilometers off the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. It has about 2 crore people, about the same as in Haryana. Like other nations in the South Asia region, Sri Lanka has a diverse population. The majority social groups are the Sinhala speakers 74% and the Tamil speakers 18%. Among Tamils, there are two subgroups. Tamil natives of the country are called Sri Lankan Tamils 13%. The rest, whose forefathers came from India as plantation workers during colonial period, are called Indian Tamils. Okay, children, if you take the country Sri Lanka, it is an island nation and which is just a few kilometers off the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. So, and if you see the population, it has about 2 crore people, just the same in Haryana. And like other nations in the South Asia region, Sri Lanka also has a diverse population. And there are two major social groups in Sri Lanka. They are Sinhala speakers. So they cover 74%. 74% of the people are Sinhala speakers and 18% of the people are Tamil speakers. And even among the Tamils, we have two subgroups. So that is Sri Lankan Tamils, they cover 13% and the remaining is Indian Tamils. So they are those whose grand or forefathers came from India as plantation workers during the colonial period. So they are called as Indian Tamils. So under Tamils they have subgroups. They are Sri Lankan Tamils and Indian Tamils. Sri Lankan Tamils are concentrated in the north and east of the country. Most of the Sinhala speaking people are Buddhist, while most of the Tamils are Hindus or Muslims. There are about 7% Christians who are both Tamil and Sinhala. Just imagine what could happen in situations like this. In Belgium, the Dutch community could take advantage of its numeric majority and force its will on the French and German speaking population. Okay, children, if you take Sri Lankan Tamils, they were spread in the north and east of the country. Okay, and most of the people were Sinhala speaking, and these Sinhala speaking people are Buddhist, while most of the Tamils are Hindus or Muslims. Okay, and then 7% were the Christians. Okay, and they were both Tamil and Sinhala. And if you imagine what could happen in situations like this in Belgium, which was the majority, the Dutch speaking community was majority. So they could take advantage of its numeric majority and force its will on the French and German speaking population. This would push the conflict among communities further. This could lead to a very messy partition of the country. Both the sides would claim control over Brussels. In Sri Lanka, the Sinhala community enjoyed an even bigger majority and could impose its will on the entire country. Now, let's look at what happened in both these countries. Okay, children, look at this map. Ethnic communities of Sri Lanka. So,
Sri Lankan Tamils, they occupy north and east of the country, and where they were both Hindus and Muslims. And down we have got Tamils, only 18% were Tamils, and Indian Tamils who were both Hindus and Muslims. And if you take 74% were Sinhalese and they followed Buddhism, and 7% were Christians who were both Sinhalese and Tamil, and remaining 1% were Muslims.
Let's now have a look at the reasons for alienation of Sri Lankan Tamils, or the majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. The leaders of the Sinhala community sought to secure dominance over government by virtue of their majority. As a result, the democratically elected government adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy. In 1956, an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language, thus disregarding Tamil. So here children, Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. Okay, and the leaders of Sinhala community. So we have already seen that the majority was Sinhala community. So they wanted to dominate the other Tamil speaking people, and they want to secure a dominance over government as they were the majority of people. So as a result, what happened? The democratically elected government adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy. So they wanted to establish Sinhala supremacy. In 1956, an act was passed. What did the act say? It was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language. So Sinhala was the only official language, and this led to the disregarding of Tamil language. The governments followed preferential policies that favored Sinhala applicants for university positions and government jobs. A new constitution stipulated that the state shall protect and foster Buddhism. All these government measures, coming one after the other, gradually increased the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. They felt that none of the major political parties led by the Buddhist Sinhala leaders were sensitive to their language and culture. Okay children, if you see what happened, the Sinhala speaking people, they wanted to dominate the other people who were the Sri Lankan Tamils. And these people, Sinhala people, they got most of the seats in university positions and government jobs. So what happened? All these government measures which were coming one after the other, it gradually increased the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. Okay, they felt that the constitution and the government policies denied their equal political rights, discriminated against them in getting jobs and other opportunities, and ignored their interests. As a result, the relationships between the Sinhala and Tamil communities strained over time. The Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties and struggles for the recognition of Tamil as an official language, for regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. But their demand for more autonomy to provinces populated by the Tamils was repeatedly denied. By 1980s, several political organizations were formed demanding an independent Tamil Eelam in northern and eastern parts of the Sri Lanka. The distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflict. It soon turned into a civil war. As a result, thousands of people of both the communities have been killed. Many families were forced to leave the country as refugees, and many more lost their livelihoods. And if you see the meaning of civil war, a violent conflict between opposing groups within a country that becomes so intense that it appears like a war. So here the problem between the Sinhala speaking people and the Tamil speaking people, it emerged into a bigger problem, and thousands of people in both communities have been killed. Many families were forced to leave the country and move to the other place as refugees, and most of the people lost their livelihoods. And if you see the meaning of civil war, it is a violent conflict between opposing groups within a country, and that becomes so intense that it appears like a war. We'll now see a short recap on majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. After independence in 1948, Sri Lanka adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhalese supremacy over the Tamils. In 1956, an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language.
Effects on Tamils. The Tamils felt isolated. They thought that even the constitution was against them. None of the political parties ever considered their needs. The Tamils formed groups, organizations, and parties to fight for rights.
Their demands for recognition to their language and separate state with autonomous status were repeatedly neglected. This made some groups like LTTE to take violent actions. Position of Sri Lankan Tamils launched political parties and struggles for recognizing Tamil as an official language, demanded autonomy, equal opportunity in education and jobs. Political organization was formed demanding an independent Tamil Eelam in North and East Sri Lanka.
Accommodation in Belgium. The Belgian leaders took a different path. They recognized the existence of regional differences and cultural diversities. Between 1970 and 1993, they amended their constitution 4 times so as to work out an arrangement that would enable everyone to live together within the same country. The arrangement they worked out is different from any other country and is very innovative. Okay, children, so we have seen that there were divisions in the country Belgium. So what happened? The Belgian leaders, he took a different path. So in order to solve the problem, what this country did was the arrangement they worked out is different from any other country and is very innovative. Okay, we shall see what it was.
Here are some of the elements of the Belgian model. First one, Constitution prescribes that the number of Dutch and French speaking ministers shall be equal in the central government. Some special laws require the support of majority of members from each linguistic group. Thus, no single community can make decisions unilaterally. The second one, many powers of the central government have been given to state governments of the two regions of the country. The state governments are not subordinate to the central government. Okay, children, if you see the Belgian model, the first one describes that both the Dutch and the French speaking communities are equal in the central level, and it also states that no single community can make decisions alone. Only both the community can come together and take decision in the central level. And the second point denotes that many powers of the central government have been given to state governments. The central government has shared the power with the state governments of the two regions of the country. Okay, and the state government are not subordinate to the central government. Brussels as a separate government in which both the communities have equal representation. The French-speaking people accepted equal representation in Brussels because the Dutch-speaking community has accepted equal representation in the central government. Apart from the central and the state government, there is a third kind of government. This community government is elected by people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French, and German speaking, no matter where they live. This government has the power regarding cultural, educational, and language related issues. Okay, children, if you take Brussels, which is the capital of Belgium, so Brussels has a separate government in which both the communities have equal representation. So the French-speaking people, they accepted equal representation in Brussels because the Dutch-speaking community, they accepted equal representation in the central government. And in the next point, it denotes that apart from the central and the state government, they have another government, the third kind of government. It is called community government. So this is elected by the people belonging to one language community. So we have already seen that they have Dutch, French, and German speaking. So these language speaking people, they can have a own government. So no matter where they live, this government has the power regarding cultural, educational, and language related issues. Okay, children, we shall see the power sharing in Belgium. So, as a conclusion, we see that equal number of ministers from Dutch and French speaking areas in the central government. No single community can make decisions unilaterally. Transfer of power from the center to the state. State government will not be a subordinate to the center. Separate government in Brussels with equal representation for the French and the Dutch. Formation of community government elected by the people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French, and German, wherever they live. This has power regarding culture, education, and language related issues. So this is the conclusion of power sharing in Belgium. Okay, children, we shall see Belgium and Sri Lanka. So we'll now have a comparison between Belgium and Sri Lanka. So if you take similarities, both are democracies, and if you take differences, power sharing arrangement is different. So what is unique about Belgium? Leaders have realized that unity of the country is possible only by respecting the feelings and interests of different communities and regions. And what was the drawback in the system followed by Sri Lanka? Dominance of majority community, that is Sinhalese, by refusing to share power with Tamils, resulting in disunity. Okay, children, we have come to the end of the session. The remaining lesson will be covered in the next session, and you'll get your home assignment, worksheets, and activity through PDF. Thank you, children.